For over 50 years, one question has echoed through time. Did we really go to the moon? It took 400,000 people to put men on the moon, but it only took one writer to plant the seed of doubt that it was all a $30 billion lie. From waving flags in a vacuum to missing stars, the evidence for a hoax can seem compelling. And today, a surprising number of people still think the Apollo missions were faked. But what's the real story? Today, we're not dismissing the claims. We're tackling them head-on to separate hard science from fiction. Many claims come from the iconic photos and videos NASA released. To a skeptic's eye, they're full of holes. You know the shot, Buzz Aldrin salutes a flag that seems to ripple in a breeze. The argument is simple: no air, no wind, no wave. It must be a studio set. But this isn't about wind, it's about physics. The flag was held by a vertical pole and a horizontal rod, but the astronauts had trouble extending the rod fully, which is why the fabric has a permanent ripple. The waving happened when they twisted the pole into the lunar soil, transferring energy to the fabric. In the vacuum of space, with no air resistance to slow it down, the flag kept swinging on its own momentum. The wave isn't evidence of a hoax, it's proof of a vacuum. In every photo, the lunar sky is a pitch-black void. With no atmosphere, shouldn't the sky be full of stars? This is a matter of basic photography. The lunar surface and the astronauts' white spacesuits were incredibly bright in the direct sun. Cameras were set with fast shutter speeds to expose for these bright objects. The faint light from distant stars was never going to be bright enough to register on the film. It's not a conspiracy, it's photography 101. Conspiracy theorists point to photos where shadows aren't parallel, arguing this proves multiple studio lights. This mistake assumes the lunar surface is perfectly flat. The Apollo landing sites were hilly and cratered, and even small slopes can completely change a shadow's direction. Plus, you have the effect of perspective, where parallel lines like railway tracks appear to converge in the distance. And if there were multiple lights, every object would have multiple shadows, which we never see in any Apollo photo. So the photos hold up, but what about getting there? Surrounding Earth are the Van Allen radiation belts, and the claim is that any astronaut passing through would receive a lethal dose. This sounds scary, but it misunderstands the mission. NASA knew about the belts and planned for them. The Apollo spacecraft traveled at 25,000 miles per hour, passing through the thinnest parts of the belts in just a few hours. The spacecraft's aluminum hull provided significant shielding, and the total radiation dose was low. The man who discovered them, Dr. James Van Allen, called the argument nonsense. We're putting old questions under a modern microscope, but new questions pop up every day. If you're enjoying this breakdown, consider subscribing. We'd love for you to join us as we investigate the next big question. Back on the moon, theorists point to more anomalies on the ground. The idea is the lunar module's engine should have blasted a deep crater. But the lander just sits there peacefully. This comes down to moon physics. First, in a vacuum, dust doesn't form a cloud. It travels in a straight line and falls back down. More importantly, for the final, gentle touchdown, the astronauts throttled the engine way down. In the moon's 1/6 gravity, the engine only needed enough thrust to support the lander's weight, not blast a new hole in the ground. A photo from Apollo 16 shows a rock with what looks like a letter C on it, claimed to be a mislabeled prop. The reality is more mundane. When experts examine the original high-resolution negatives, the C is gone. The most likely explanation? A stray hair or fiber got onto the film during the duplication process, creating the mark on public copies. It's a perfect example of seeing what you want to see. Finally, the biggest claim, a massive cover-up. Some argue that 382 kilograms of moon rocks are fakes from Antarctica, and the whole thing was filmed by director Stanley Kubrick. Let's start with the rocks. For 50 years, scientists worldwide have studied them. Lunar rocks are unique. They show they were formed with no oxygen or water and are covered in tiny craters from meteorite impacts, a texture impossible to fake on Earth. As for the Kubrick theory, there is zero evidence. Think about the scale of this lie. It would have involved the 400,000 people who worked on the project and, crucially, the Soviet Union. The Soviets were tracking the Apollo missions every step of the way. If the US hadn't gone, the USSR would have screamed it from the rooftops. Their silence is one of the loudest pieces of evidence that the landings were real. In every case, from the flag to the sea rock, the claims fall apart under scientific scrutiny. These anomalies aren't proof of a hoax. They're proof of a completely different physical environment. So why do these theories persist? They started in the 1970s, a time of deep government mistrust. Today, the internet is rocket fuel for misinformation. But the evidence for humanity's greatest journey is overwhelming. We can still bounce lasers off reflectors left on the surface. And most powerfully, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has taken high-resolution pictures of the landing sites. You can clearly see the lunar modules, the scientific equipment, and even the faint tracks left by the astronauts in the dust over half a century ago. They are still there, silent testaments to a moment when we dared to do something extraordinary and succeeded.